Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to determine which stock is a better buy, Intel or Qualcomm. First thing I'm going to look at is their price change in 2022. Intel was down 48.68% while Qualcomm was down 39.88%, both significant price declines for the year. The next thing I want to look at is revenue growth quarterly going back to before 2014. And you can see here that more recently, Intel's revenue has suffered dramatically, minus 20% in the most recent quarter. And meanwhile, Qualcomm still gained 22% in its most recent quarter increase, whereas earlier Qualcomm was the one that experienced a big revenue decrease over 40%. Looking longer term, it looks like Intel's revenue is more stable, however, trending downward recently, following the surge in the initial moments of the pandemic when people upgraded and bought new computers. That benefited Intel. But now that people have bought computers, PC sales are down. In fact, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal this morning saying that PC shipments in the final quarter of 2022 were down over 20%, and that downtrend is likely to persist throughout 2023. That's going to be bad news for Intel Corporation. So, whereas Qualcomm, mostly operates in mobile handsets and works in that industry, and also the Internet of Things is still growing, and Qualcomm has a significant presence in automotive, and car sales are likely to rebound higher in 2023. So looking nearer term, I would say Qualcomm has the revenue growth advantage. Now let's look at profitability going back during that same time frame to before 2014. Looking at operating income, Intel was doing really well with growing its operating income, surpassing, they started out closely in 2014, and then Intel was building an advantage. That is until 2020, where Intel started to revenue growth started to slow down and decelerate, and Qualcomm started to increase and accelerate as more people started buying smartphones and started buying fewer computers. And Intel's operating income of 489 million was way below Qualcomm's 4.7 billion operating income. And then if we were to look at it margin wise, looking at the operating margin trailing 12 months going back the same time, you see they were pretty close to begin with all the way until 2016. And then Intel started to build an advantage where Qualcomm was struggling. And now it's the opposite story where Qualcomm is building the advantage where Intel is struggling. And that's not surprising. They both operate in cyclical industries, and the sales in these industries and profit in these industries fluctuate. And so when one is doing well, the other one may not be doing as well. And right now, Qualcomm is feeling the advantage where Intel is feeling the disadvantage. But overall, they're both nicely profitable. Even amid Intel's struggles, it generated an operating profit margin of 11.5%. But Qualcomm really outperformed with an operating margin of 35.88%. So Qualcomm with the advantage in terms of operating profitability. Next, I want to look at cash flow from operations. And here we see Intel significantly outperforming with cash flow from operations close to 30 billion in its most recent year, and whereas Qualcomm is at 9.01 billion. And going back all the way to 2014, Intel has held that advantage over the years, and Qualcomm has not closed that gap, even though Qualcomm was showing more progress in profitability. Intel is still better in terms of cash flow from operations. So what causes this difference between profit and cash flow from operations? For a company like Intel and Qualcomm, the big difference is capital investments and depreciation and amortization. These are non-cash expenses that the company must account for on the income statement, but it's not a cash outflow, and so it's not taking away cash from the company, but the company still must account for it on the income statement. When a company like Intel invests, let's say $50 billion on a manufacturing facility, that $50 billion is a cash outflow in 1 year. That $50 billion goes out in 1 year, maybe 2 years. But the company on the income statement needs to account for that on a 10-year or 20-year or 30-year basis, depending on the type of capital investment it is. So it's a one-time cash outflow, but the income statement takes accounts for it over 10 years. And so that creates a difference between operating profitability and cash flow from operations, and that's showing up here in the difference between Intel and Qualcomm. Finally, let's look at valuation. Intel is trading at a forward PE ratio of 15.29, where Qualcomm is trading at a PE ratio of 11.81. So, to answer the question, which is the better buy, I'm going to say Qualcomm is the better buy, trading at a cheaper valuation with better margins in the near term, and the fact that PC shipments are likely to remain pressured at least throughout 2023. If I was to choose one of these stocks to buy right now, I would choose Qualcomm. All right, that's all I've got for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/Parkev for the 10 best stocks to buy now.